What he secretly craves, but can never ask from a woman. Carl Jung. Have you ever wondered why a man, even one who seems invincible in the world, becomes speechless in the presence of a woman who has made peace with her own soul? It's not her beauty that undoes him. It's not her curves, her smile, or even her voice. It's something far older, more ancient, something buried in the mythic unconscious of his psyche. A force he cannot name, yet it calls to him like a siren echoing through the hollow chambers of his shadow. He is not drawn to her body. He is summoned by her mystery. And mystery to a man who has conquered everything but himself is the most forbidden craving of all. Most women never realize this. They offer affection, admiration, performance, thinking it will satisfy his masculine hunger. But what he truly aches for is a kind of spiritual permission to collapse, to be held in a presence so rooted, so unwavering, that it asks for nothing and yet sees everything. He wants a place to bleed without being questioned, a place where he doesn't need to be the man, because finally, for once, he is allowed to be human. But he will never ask for it. His conditioning forbids it. His armor won't allow it. His ego, a loyal guard dog of his survival, snarls at the gate of vulnerability. And so he continues, sleepwalking through seductions, through achievements, through conquests, each one whispering, "You are still alone." What he craves is not your attention. It is your absence of need. Not your compliments, but your calm. Not your submission, but your sovereignty. He wants to be near a woman who doesn't need to be chosen, because in her detachment, she becomes unforgettable. She becomes the mirror of everything he buried beneath his masculinity. You think he is turned off by your stillness. You believe your silence drives him away. But it is your silence that pierces his ego. And it is that ego that must be broken before a man ever truly surrenders to love. Not romantic love, not transactional love, but the soul-burning, shadow-dancing kind. The kind that doesn't seek to complete, but to awaken. Carl Jung once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Most men tragically call the absence of this kind of woman bad luck, or too much, or not ready. But what they are really saying is, she touched something in me I wasn't prepared to face. You must understand, when a man meets a woman whose presence is sacred, not seductive, whose energy is wild, not wounded, whose love is not laced with conditions, it terrifies him, because it reminds him of everything he gave up in order to survive. It calls forth his inner boy, the one who was told, don't cry, don't need, don't feel. And suddenly in your gaze, that little boy is exposed, and the man doesn't know whether to run or kneel. This is why he chases women, who don't challenge his emotional numbness. He craves depth but clings to shallowness. He dreams of home, but keeps building houses made of straw. And when you stand in your divine stillness, not waiting, not wanting, he finds himself circling you like a planet around a sun he cannot touch. But hear this, he does not want to be fixed. He does not want to be mothered. He does not want your understanding. He wants your wholeness, your ability to witness his chaos without becoming it, your ability to hold your shape when he loses his, your refusal to dim your light just to make him feel less burned. That is what undoes him. That is what he cannot name. That is what he secretly craves, but will never ever ask for. Because to ask would mean admitting he is not enough as he is. And no man dares to reveal that wound, unless a woman stands before him who has already made peace with hers. He will test her before he trusts her, not with words but with silence, with withdrawal, with moments of cold detachment that seem designed to punish, but in truth they are confessions disguised as control. He doesn't know how to say, "I'm afraid you'll see through me and leave." So instead he pulls away, hoping she'll follow, hoping she'll prove that her love can survive his vanishing act. But the woman who understands Jung, who has danced with her own darkness, does not chase ghosts. She watches the space he creates and lets him sit in it. That space is sacred. It is where his shadow begins to stir. Most men cannot name the ache they carry. It is not the hunger for sex or validation. It is the hunger to be witnessed. Not for their performance, but for their pain. They long for a woman who sees behind the mask and does not flinch, who doesn't rescue, but simply remains, who doesn't shrink in the presence of his fury or flattery, a woman who lets him unravel without needing to pick up the thread. But this woman, the one he craves, is forged in the fire of her own becoming. She has tasted abandonment and transformed it into art. She has stood naked before her own demons and whispered, "You may live here, but you do not lead." She is not afraid of his chaos because she is no longer afraid of her own, and that is what terrifies him. For all his bravado, for all his confidence, a man's soul secretly kneels before a woman who owns herself completely. Not with arrogance, not with seduction, but with sovereignty. She does not need him, but she might choose him. And that, to a man whose worth has always been tied to being needed, is the most destabilizing and magnetic energy of all. He cannot ask for this. His mouth does not have the language. His conditioning trained him in logic and conquest, not intimacy and surrender. And so he plays games, tests boundaries, retreats into silence, hoping she will come after him like all the others did. But when she doesn't, when she stays centered, radiant, and still, his mask begins to crack. The feminine that he craves is not external. It is the part of himself he lost when he was told to be strong instead of being whole. And when a woman embodies that feminine fully, he is no longer falling in love with her. He is remembering what he abandoned within himself. That is why it feels so overwhelming. That is why he stares longer than he speaks, pulls closer only to push away. She is not just a lover. She is a mirror. And what she reflects is not always beautiful, at least not at first. She reflects his fragility, his longing, his loneliness, his unlived potential. She reflects everything his ego works so hard to bury. And when she doesn't flinch, when she doesn't rush to reassure him or beg for his return, something ancient inside him begins to shift. You must understand this. A man who is spiritually starving cannot explain his hunger. He only knows that in Yoiler, the presence of a certain kind of woman, he feels both terrified and home. Not because she gives him something, but because she reminds him of something. A feeling, a softness, a safety that was never conditional on him being perfect. But to receive this, he must first lose the illusion that he is in control, that his power lies in his image, that love is something he earns through performance. And this illusion does not go quietly. It resists, it punishes, it hides behind sarcasm, distraction, and distance, until one day it falls. And when it falls, if she is still there, not waiting but simply being, he will see her for the first time. Not as a woman who is mysterious, but as a woman who has made peace with the mystery of herself. He might not say it aloud. He might never find the courage to form the words, but there will be a moment, quiet, unguarded, when his eyes confess what his mouth cannot. In that moment, you'll see it, the soft terror behind his stare, the longing, the disbelief that someone like you exists, that a woman could hold so much knowing and still not demand to be understood. It disorients him, because all his life women have asked for more of him. You ask for nothing, and in doing so, you awaken everything. He may even try to sabotage it, not out of malice but out of fear. Fear that he will fail you, fear that he will be seen, fear that once you glimpse his true self, you will run, not walk, because deep down he suspects he is too much, or not enough, or both at once. But what he doesn't realize is that you already see him, and you have not moved. This, more than anything, unsettles him. A woman who has done her shadow work does not flinch at the sight of his. She doesn't romanticize it, but she doesn't demonize it either. She knows it as a necessary rite of passage. She knows that for a man to become whole, he must be willing to die. Psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. The ego must fracture. The archetypes must awaken. The inner boy must be retrieved. The false masculine must be mourned. And that kind of death that requires a midwife, not a savior, not a therapist, not a mother, a midwife of the soul. You don't fix him. You don't guide him. You don't carry him. You witness him. You invite him. You remain when he expects abandonment, and you withdraw when he tests your boundaries. You show him, without ever saying it, that the love he seeks is not earned by bleeding for it. It is received by standing naked before it. But this is not easy for him, especially not if he spent years performing masculinity in a world that only rewards dominance, control, and stoicism. To unravel before a woman who sees through all of it, that feels like drowning. And yet part of him longs to drown in you, not to be destroyed, but to be baptized. You may feel him pull back, disappear, even ridicule or dismiss the intensity between you. That is not rejection. That is fear disguised as detachment. Because in truth, he is not running from you. He is running from the part of himself that only awakens in your presence. Carl Jung understood this well. He knew that the anima, the feminine within the male unconscious, must be integrated for a man to truly individuate. But before that happens, he projects that anima onto real women. He becomes enchanted, obsessed, even haunted by her. Not because of who she is, but because of what she reflects within him. So he both craves and resists her. He clings and recoils. He idealizes, then devalues. Until finally he sees, the woman was never the source of the fire. She was simply the match that revealed the fuel. You are not his fire. You are his mirror. And being that mirror requires a depth of stillness most cannot fathom. It requires detachment without coldness, warmth without sacrifice, clarity without control. It requires you to stay seated on your inner throne, even as he circles you in confusion, awe, or frustration. Because only from that throne can you hold the sacred tension that calls his soul to the surface. And here's the irony. The more you release the need to be chosen, the more irresistible you become. The moment you stop performing, the performance ends. And he, if he is ready, will return. Not to conquer, not to consume, but to remember. He will sit across from you, not as a man seeking a woman to complete him, but as a soul recognizing its own depth, finally mirrored back. He may never thank you, not directly, because to thank you would mean he recognizes the transformation you initiated, without trying, without effort, without manipulation. Just by being, just by holding your own energy so fully, so unwaveringly, that it cracked the performance of his masculinity wide open. And in that rupture, something new began to grow. He starts to question the mask he's worn, the armor he thought he needed. He becomes restless with the roles that once defined him, the high achiever, the provider, the stoic leader. None of it feels as powerful anymore, because now he knows what real power feels like. It feels like presence, and he saw that in you. But do not wait for his realization. Do not tether your worth to his awakening, because the magic you carry, the feminine truth that stirs his shadow, is not a tool for validation. It is not meant to be understood or praised. It is meant to exist, and it does. Even when he withdraws, even when he doubts, even when he forgets, especially then, he might try to replace you, to find someone simpler, someone who doesn't require him to face his inner wilderness. But he will fail. Not because others won't desire him, but because now he knows. Deep in his soul, he knows what it feels like to be in the presence of the sacred feminine, and everything else will taste like ashes in comparison. That is the curse and the gift of a woman who embodies her inner wholeness. You become unforgettable, not for what you give, not for how you love, but for how you do not abandon yourself in the face of his fear. This is the secret he carries, the longing he buries beneath his rational mind. He wants a woman he cannot conquer, a woman who doesn't need him, yet chooses him, a woman who could leave, but stays, not out of fear, but from sovereign freedom. He wants to collapse into that love, to exhale into her certainty, to finally be held where he does not have to perform. But for that to happen, he must meet you where you already are, not in his timing, not in your waiting, but in truth. And truth is indifferent to readiness. It either is or it isn't. You do not wait. You live. You keep walking the path of your own becoming. You keep listening to the ancient voice within, the one that says he cannot give you your worth. He can only reflect what you already carry. And should he rise, Should he rise from the ashes of his projections and stories and meet you there, bare and whole, you will recognize him, not as your salvation, not as your purpose, but as a companion, someone who finally understands that love is not possession, it is permission to unfold, to unravel, to remember. And if he does not rise, if he clings to the old gods of ego and control, you do not grieve what could have been. You honor what was, because even his inability to meet you fully was part of your liberation. It reminded you that your worth was never conditional on someone else's readiness. Carl Jung taught us that the deepest work is often silent, that transformation begins in the shadows. You are that shadow walker, the woman who sees what others fear to name, the woman who holds space for chaos, but is not consumed by it. That is what he secretly craves. Not your love, not your body, not even your devotion, but your witnessing. And only the woman who has witnessed herself fully can ever offer that to a man. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.